This is Joe Morse. You are listening to the History of Aviation podcast with Derrick Beeler, David Rowe, and David Gorman.
Can you fly this plane and land it?
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Hello, friends. Here we are again for episode 52 of the History of Aviation podcast, and what a good one we got lined up for you. I'm Derrick Beeler, and I'm joined first off by Mr. David Rowe. How you doing, David?
Some interesting discussion about aviation.
Absolutely, and we're also, as always, joined by Mr. Dave Gorman. How's it going, Dave?
Oh, it's going well. I'm looking forward to talking more planes. Got to do a lot of that in St. Louis this weekend with our buddy Bruce, the St. Louis Air Show and STEM extravaganza that they had going on. So that was great to get out there and take a way too many pictures.
Always.
Some pretty fascinating aircraft. So it's a great time.
Good deal. And our special guest for today's episode for a look at aviation careers then and now is aviation career coach Julien Martinson. How's it going, Julien?
Oh, it's going very good. I always like to talk about airplanes and careers, and what fascinates me the most are the people that work in this field.
And that's absolutely what we do here, and you're 100% right on that. So let's jump right into this and go into careers in aviation in the golden age of aviation.
Well, my gosh, let's first define the golden age here. I mean, it seems like
that's
it's
your
always
age.
been golden. I mean, for us, it seems like it's always been golden, all the advances and everything. But when we talk about golden age, maybe going back to the
60s,
the 50s and 60s,
Mm-hmm.
and people were flying some pretty swanky looking aircraft, the Constellation and those early jet transports, but people were dressing up to fly still. It's always fun to see those old pictures of people wearing coats and ties and dresses on aircraft, and today it's more like beach attire.
Yeah, comfort is king today. But yeah, back in the golden age, that 50s and 60s, it was a special thing to get to fly because it was expensive. It wasn't something that the general public could do. You were a business traveler or you had some wealth, and that's how you got on the plane. And like I said, it was a special deal, so you dressed up for the occasion. And the planes that they were taking off on were in that transition period where we were going from props to jets. So there was a lot of variety in the type of aircraft you could fly on, different distances. And, we don't have as many places to go back then as we do today. So you're a little limited on where you could go.
Well, what I found with the airlines is that they try to compete very much with the cruise industry. And so the meals were extravagant with the lobsters and caviar and champagne flowed endlessly. And some of the airplanes were featured a piano bar and a lounge, and you could smoke, and it was quite a swanky experience, just like you might find on a cruise ship. And so they try to compete with airlines try to compete with that market. And of course, the seat pitch was much bigger. So you could have a much more of a relaxed travel experience. However, I think the flight options were much limited. And so to get from point A to B, let's say from the East Coast to the West Coast of the United States, you might have to take 4 or 5 flights instead of one direct flight, or with one stop in between. So if you miss that connecting flight, then you may not get another one until the next day or a week later. So the flight options were much more limited.
Well, did they have such a thing as hubs at that time? Airports that served as regional hubs in the way that we're familiar with today?
Well, directly I cannot comment, but I know that the flight options were very limited. You may only have one flight or two to a single destination in a day, whereas now between Toronto and Vancouver, for an example, you've got between 10 and 20 flight options in a given day. So there's lots of options. If you miss one, you just get the next one.
Well, we're talking about job opportunities, and while I've never been a member of a flight crew, I always associate planes back in the 50s and 60s with having flight engineers and three-man, four-person crews perhaps managing the front end, the business end of the aircraft while they were, you had your flight crew in the cabin, but a lot more responsibility and a lot more hands-on just in order to operate the aircraft back then, right?
Well, this is correct. A lot of the flights did have a three-man cockpit, which has now been eliminated. One position has been eliminated with the increase of technology. So now we just have a two-crew pilot. But also safety was a big issue in those days. Um, Airplanes crashed, and they even had mid-air collisions. So the safety record wasn't quite that good. And it's only later that the aviation industry implemented safety management systems where they actually implemented a strategy to mitigate um, safety and hazards during the flight. And now flying is very safe. We don't get a lot of crashes anymore and mid-air collisions, and that is due to the various radar systems that we now have on board the airplane. So flying is much more safer now than it was 40 years ago. So that has changed a lot as well. But the image of flying has also changed in that now today it's open to the masses, and so the image of flying is more of a mode of is perceived more as a mode of transportation rather than an experience exclusive to the elite.
As my wife says, it's like riding a bus in the sky. She just says, you're herded in, you're herded out, and it's not fun, but it's something you have to get to where you need to go. Whereas in the 70s and 80s, it was an experience. It was beginning to end. It was new and exciting. And today, most people, I say most, a lot of people have flown. So it's not new and exciting. It's a function of I need to go from point A to point B, and it's not a big experience. You're just interested in getting there as quick as possible.
Well, this is exactly true. And now with the increase of technology and biometric security, as various airlines and airports integrate technology, you lose that personal touch to the point that passengers find it very difficult to distinguish the experience between one airline and another airline, except for the colors of the cabin and the uniform type or the scarf, the color of the scarf that the flight attendants wear. But for the rest of everything has been streamlined so much so that the passenger has a difficult time distinguishing one airline from the other. And so this becomes a critical issue that airlines must compete with, that air transportation has been reduced down to a commodity.
When we think about jobs in aviation back then, how did most people, how do we understand most people got into that type of work? I mean, as far as I know, a lot of people now who become pilots, a lot of them get training in the military. They're, a lot of service in the military, come out of the military and then get a job in commercial aviation. Was that true back in the 60s and 70s?
Well, I would think that a lot of the pilots did come from military backgrounds. Furthermore, the image that pilots wanted to perceive was equal to those of captains on the airplane, sorry, on the cruise ship. And so for therefore, the captain's uniform was very similar to the captain of nautical industry. And so that resembled a suit with a kepi. And so they wanted to maintain that image. As far as flight attendants was concerned, I think the occupation was much different in those days, much stricter adherence to height and weight, exclusively for females, and um, and it was also a lot of smile therapy where um, uh, the flight attendants had to put up with a lot of more schmoozing within the cabin, which may not be tolerated now anymore. Yeah. So on those aspects, the role of flight attendants has also evolved quite a bit.
Well, I think the safety aspect that the flight attendants deal with today is paramount as opposed to, the 60s, 70s, and 80s, where it was like you're saying, it was more about smiling and making sure everybody had a drink. Now it's literally making sure everybody's well, that there's no illness, that if somebody is sick, they get to them and take care of them as quickly as possible. So that safety aspect has really risen way high in the necessary needs.
Yeah, and we can expand safety as well to cabin safety and attention to emergency procedures, that including of a ditching or a crash landing or a landing within 10 minutes. So if there's a fire on board, the flight attendants are trained to fight the fire. Where in those days, it was more the role of the flight attendant was more perceived as one of a hostess, and they may not have had that exclusive training to fight the fires or these types of things. So the role has evolved a lot as well.
Well, I think in the in the movie Sully, after they ran through those birds, the dramatization of the time between that and then the crash showed the flight attendants absolutely taking control of that cabin and directing everybody to brace, brace, brace. They were in charge and giving directions, and I really enjoyed that depiction. And we've confirmed that is the level of training, that's the level of professionalism, and perhaps that wasn't at that level, as we say, back in the '60s. More of a focus on being a hostess and meeting the passenger needs, and not quite as much on safety.
Yeah.
Yeah. So back in that day, air traffic control, I remember Reagan deregulated the air traffic control back in the 80s. What was the air traffic control situation in the 60s? Was it, across the country? Was it spotty? How prevalent was it?
Well, Dave, what I've always heard is that along with all the networks and just better communication and better coverage,
Technology.
yeah, all those things just improved. But I think, as Julian had suggested, there were a lot of improvements and changes that came about through tragedy. Places where there wasn't good coverage and there wasn't good coordination and communication, and having aircraft that had no business being in the same airspace and didn't have the ability to see each other, literally, and also on radar, colliding, and tragic things that happened. Sometimes you'll see reports of crashes and accidents in the past, and they say it was after this accident that led to this change. This is the impetus for that change. And so it wasn't always apparent what the need was until it was glaringly apparent and cost lives. So fortunately, it is a lot safer now. But those types of things, and I'm sure the reflection of the coverage and the responsibilities in that air traffic control tower grew exponentially.
Well, that's a very good comment, Dave. In the industry, we call that tombstone policy, tombstone safety policy. So the safety policy that's been implemented because of a tombstone that's been erected because of an accident, obviously.
Hmm.
And so we see that sometime um, previously, but safety has increased paramount. So there's several aspects to safety and the evolution of safety and how people perceive safety. So ideally, in according to aviation studies, the position that airlines and airports want to be in is called generative safety, a generative position to safety, which means a safety policy that is continuously evolving to become better and better. And so companies are airlines and air traffic control have implemented a safety focused culture that encourages safety and encourages reporting of safety and accidents, and therefore these can be tabulated. And in over a year, you can see how many incidences have occurred in that area and what can be done to bring those numbers down. And so the approach to safety has now changed a lot as well.
Yeah, with the number of aircraft that are flying today, too, so many people have private aircraft today. I mean, you go to any local airport and you'll see, half a dozen or 10, 20 airplanes just parked there, and those are all private. Those don't have anything to do with the commercial industry. So there's a huge, impetus for all these planes flying. Somebody's got to watch them and make sure they're, safe and doing their thing and training. I've got local, pilot training at my local airport. So, I mean, there's something that if you want to fly, just about every local airport has somebody that can teach you.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And Julian, you're a aviation career coach. Tell us a little bit about that and what all that involves.
Well, recently I graduated from Griffith University with a master's in aviation management, and I completed my thesis in the global pilot supply and demand. So the question is that why is it that in Canada, where I live, that there's pilot shortage, and some airlines had to cancel their flights out of Winnipeg and Saskatoon to southern destinations, which means that the market is unable to um, travel to where they want to go simply because they don't have the manpower to fly the airplanes. And so it's not the first time that industries have faced manpower shortage. There has been shortages in nurses in Australia and in the fashion industry in the UK. But there are several reasons that is driving the aviation industry, and one is that the disposable income per family has increased, and so therefore more families are able to afford airplanes or air travel, I should say. The aviation structure, the aircraft structure has also changed from steel to carbon fiber composite materials. Therefore, the entire aircraft is lighter and requires less fuel to travel. In addition, policy and regulations have also decreased. So it's easier for people to travel without visas, and the understandings for travel between two countries have also relaxed. And so therefore, international travel is easier now than it was in the past. And so this has created an enormous drive in the industry for passenger volume, which has been unprecedented. And year over year, we see increases outside of the pandemic, of course. But the industry is recovering very well. And so because of these strong trends that support industry growth, I came to realize that the industry is going to need a lot of manpower. Um, Also considering that there's upcoming retirement. Many of the older pilots and the older generation are retiring, and so all over the world, we're going to need young people to take on leadership roles within the industry. And for that reason, I have written my book, which is called The Ultimate Guide to Careers in Aviation. Um, so if you open up the book like this, you'll see that the air traffic control tower is the central point of the book, and you have on one side the aircraft, the airport with commercial aviation, and on the front side, you have the hangar with general aviation and the various careers. So we talk a little bit about the history of aviation and some of the highlights, and we talk about where the aviation industry is now in terms of global volume, its contribution to the GDP, and what are the challenges that airports and airlines are facing regarding environmental sustainability, recycling issues, capacity issues that many airports are facing around the world. And then finally, the book goes into four careers, which is pilot, air traffic control, aircraft engineering, and aviation management. So we quickly discuss the entry points into those careers and what are the subsidiary careers. So people may think, oh, I want to be a pilot. Okay, but did you consider helicopter pilot or a seaplane pilot or an ice pilot? And so those are all different types of pilot options with different lifestyles and pay structures. And then finally, the book talks about networking, resume writing, and interviewing skills. The book is ideally for Gen Z, so somebody that's coming out of high school, that's aged 12 to 28, that's open to exploring career options, but just wants a first touch point to something that's approachable um, to explore different careers. And then from there, they could go on and do a little bit more research.
Well, I think that sounds like a fantastic thing for you to provide, and I'm excited to take a look at that myself. I teach seventh grade, so I teach 12 and 13 year olds, and I know that they often want to know, well, how do I get there?
Mm.
How do I get? Here's where I am. What do I have to do to get to this, to that, and to make it to this career? And they're not all going to be rappers.
Or social media stars
Yeah, but
or
but
or in the NBA.
or
yeah,
podcasters. Go ahead, Dave.
yes, but they do have a lot of questions about those things, and I was in St. Louis at an air show this weekend, and a big component, in fact, the title of the air show, it includes the word STEM. They are just focusing big time on careers and connecting dots, and so there are
Mm.
several STEM programs in the schools there in the St. Louis area that were had students who got to some special access and got to visit uh, up close and personal. A STEM teacher got to go on a flight with the Blue Angels. Um, I'm thinking maybe that's what I need to do, but
Right.
they had a lot of a focus on it, and like I say, just connecting those dots and showing kids how you can get to this point too, and making it not so seemingly out of reach, and that's the kind of it sounds like that's the focus of your book, to say, hey, here's how you can get to these places, and this is why this is a good job, this is why this is meaningful and sustainable and worthwhile.
Well, you've really hit the nail on the head, I think, Dave. A lot of the aviation careers, they do require STEM careers, that is science, technology, engineering, and math. So a pilot career is very much math driven because you have to calculate altitudes and approach angles and distances, and have a very good aptitude for three-dimensional spaces. So if you're gifted in music, then maybe pilot is not such a good fit for you for that skill
Right.
set. Um, and aircraft engineering is also has also lots of opportunities because it includes avionics, aircraft design, and even some of the things from the past are coming still current, which is supersonic travel and outer space travel is coming back. So that is not going away at all. However, if you want to get into those fields, you do need education and a certificate to get into that. And Aviation has also expanded a lot, and so you need aviation management. There are many universities where you can study aviation management at the undergraduate and at the master's level. And that's the business side of aviation. So we look at aviation policy, strategic planning, leadership and communication styles. And so there's lots to study in that area as well. And with air traffic control, it's also a career where there are lots of courses available and programs around the world and within the States. So an air traffic controller, again, it's a lot of science and math and computer technology. Now, there's one area in the book that I don't cover so much, but should not be overlooked is aircraft manufacturing. For example, in Ontario, the third largest industry is aerospace, and there are 260 companies here that produce aircraft parts. And so this is anywhere from landing gear to tires to aircraft dashboards to lights to seats, all kinds of stuff. And those parts are essential and often overlooked in aircraft careers, and those careers do pay very well. They're into robotics, um, and you need diplomas for aircraft maintenance, aircraft engineering. Those types of programs are all available locally, internationally, and throughout the States. So, without hesitation, reach out to a career coach and ask for the correct guidance so they can lead you into the correct way and connect those dots to get the answers to where you need to go.
Well, it's been my experience too, and everything you said makes total sense to me. But it's been my experience that a lot of those industries, we have people who a big part of their job is to go out into the schools and make sure that they are promoting, make sure that they are pushing for this type of training and this type of skill set, so that they have people who will be in that employee pool in the future and not waiting until the need exists, because they know the need's going to be there. As you mentioned, a lot of folks
So
are aging out for various reasons, and these are industries that aren't going away. They're going to just improve and evolve, and the employees have to be improving and evolving as they come into those jobs.
Well, this is absolutely correct. So there are employers and schools, aviation schools, pilot schools that could go into high schools and recruit. However, keep in mind that they're obviously they have an agenda to promote their singular career or their singular program. But with the career coach, it's objective. So I don't represent one single career or one single school. I just disclose the all the options that are available to that person. And often I get calls from people overseas. Oh, I have this diploma. I'm an electrician. But how do I transition from electrician to aircraft electrician? And so then you have to upgrade some skills, and then I present to them some um, programs that are available in Europe that are more accessible to them geographically. So it's an interesting world, and it's a world that brings people together. Aviation is one of those career fields that is globally integrated. There's opportunities for improvement and career progression and camaraderie and lots of diversity, inclusion, all those types of issues that the young people they want and they desire in a career. Aviation has that to offer to young people. And so there's lots of opportunities all
Yes.
over the place. Yeah.
And it's always evolving, it's always growing, so that there's always something new being developed, so there's always something out there for you to move into.
This is absolutely correct. And it's a very exciting time with the recent announcement of Indigo Airlines purchasing 500 Airbus 321 long range. This is a game changer for the industry. Never in history has one airline purchased 500 airplanes in one single contract. So it's a game changer. It's the biggest contract ever in history. And that aircraft is a game changer because now with a single aisle, we'll be able to connect medium-sized airports. So you'll be able to fly from Victoria, British Columbia to Nice, France, and be on the beach in France um, direct without transferring through a hub on a single aisle, double engine aircraft that seats 240 passengers. And once those aircraft start rolling out, you'll see over the next 5 years or so when those aircraft start coming out, you'll see that a lot of routes will open up that before did not exist because people had to transfer through a hub. And so now with this aircraft, you won't need to travel through a hub. You can go direct from a medium-sized airport. And so this is a game changer for the industry. And you'll see a lot of increased volume, passenger volume in Asia, India, and China some of the countries that stand to have the highest propensity to travel. So you'll see more of those passengers coming through in the future. And this will directly impact our service standards because traditionally, aviation has been set on Western norms of what is socially appropriate and desirable. However, as we see the shift in passenger volume and demographics, you may find that other in developing countries will come with their own standards of what is socially appropriate and desirable within the aviation industry and what standards of social etiquette are appropriate. And airlines and the traveling public will have to adapt to those changes. Another thing that we did notice is that we do see the seating pitch getting shorter and shorter as airlines try to cram more people into the same space. However, ironically, passengers are getting fatter. So this is a challenge because as the seats are getting tighter, the passengers are getting bigger. And so this is also a challenge that the industry will have to face. How do you accommodate those two extreme trends? And then you will also see other trends as well as increased group travel and elderly travel and passengers with special needs. So before we had passengers that were um, that's paraplegic, but now the paraplegic, they're attending Olympic Games. And so they may have a group of them on an airplane. So you need the industry will have to be able to adapt to the changing and the ever increasing demands of passengers with special needs, whether they be kids, groups, students, elderly, or people with disabilities of all type, seen and unseen. So the industry will have to become brace themselves to care and attend carefully to this demographic.
Well, I I was going to make a comment. I'll still comment. I flew in a 1937 DC-3 a couple of last year. Took a one about an hour flight or so, and those seats for those people in 1937 were very tight. I'll put it that way. I'm 6'6", and I was feeling the sides, the armrests. Everything was pushing in on me. So that was quite a message there about how people have changed as well. But sometimes I'll look and you'll see articles, or I'll look on Google Earth and look at some of the places like out in California and Arizona where they've got all those retired aircraft that are parked that have been removed from service and are being scrapped or maybe stored, and they could come back online at some point. But And that's a reminder about change and evolution as well, because a lot of those planes became non-profitable. They did not have the engines that long range engines and things like that. They did not have the ability to serve people as well as some of the things coming offline now. A friend of mine just traveled from Atlanta direct to Japan on a 2-engine plane, and she was kind of worried about it, But I mean, it used to, you think it was always international travel was a 4-engine domain there, but they're more efficient and more effective and safety. So evolution over the whole industry has been, it's going to continue. No reason to think it's going to stop.
No, and it's going to require more people to innovate. So, that we need the people to come in and innovate for us.
Definitely got to have the pilots.
Julien, where can we get a copy of your book? How would somebody go about getting one?
The book is available on Amazon, both in an digital copy as well as soft copy, and it's available on other sites as well. About 14 different sites where they are able to buy books. Yeah.
I look forward to not only reading it myself, but making sure I have a copy in my classroom. So
Yeah, definitely.
I could share it with my students because, like I say, they look at things and they want to know how to get there. It sounds like you've created a book that can definitely help connect those dots. That's what it's all about.
Yes, it's easy reading, and it's the first touch point for a young person. They're ready to graduate. They're looking for some careers. It's the first touch point that'll show them the lay of the land of aviation. Yeah, so it's very approachable for a young person, and I specifically chose the colors to be bright and funky and attractive for a young person, and like I said, it covers the whole image of the aviation. When you open up the cover and when you open up the inside, you can read all about it on the inside.
Where can folks reach out to you on social media and such?
Available on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and on Instagram. And I do have a website. I welcome you to come and visit me on my website, www.julienmartinson.com.
Very good. And we'll also go ahead, Dave.
I was going to say spell Julien and Martinson because it's not a standard spelling that I would have thought. So
yeah, JulienMartinson.com.
Yeah, and I'll also put that in the description box below. I'll put a link to that website. Julien, we appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting thing you've got going here. So hopefully we get a lot of people reading your book and get a lot more people into the industry.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure talking with you. And I love talking nothing more than my passion and talking about airplanes and the people that fly them and I marveled at them. And, some days I still go down to the Toronto Pearson Airport and I do plane spotting. And I see some other people that are spotting. It still fascinates me that people will take time of their day to watch a pilot take off with an airplane, but not a lot of people will stand around and watch a lawyer write a contract, or or watch a window cleaner clean the windows. But a pilot they'll watch.
Yes, definitely.
Guilty.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate it, Julien. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Anytime you want to reach out to me without hesitation, I'm available to talk with you.
Very good. And David Rowe, that is hands down the best aerofoil photo I've ever seen.
That one is a borrowed photo. That was not mine. I was a very young child when that one was taken, so I can't claim it.
Dave Gorman, what do you got going on social media and such?
Well, I took a bunch of videos at St. Louis, and I was uploading and labeling those today. So you can see the F-15 QA flyby and a couple of F-35 and F-22 videos and AWACS, Fat Albert, a lot of things there. My YouTube channel is called Gormania, and you can look for those videos there.
And you can find all things the History of Aviation podcast in our description below, as well as Julian's website, as well as David Rowe's website. And we're going to sign out here for the podcast. So I messed that up. I made it this far.
Take two.
For David Rowe, Dave Gorman, I'm Derrick Beeler. Thanks for listening to the History of Aviation podcast.
This is Joe Morse. You are listening to the History of Aviation podcast with Derrick Beeler, David Rowe, and David Gorman.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.